Part 2. Korean Mafia runs into his 7 months heavily pregnant ex-wife working in a bar. My father wants our daughter, Mir. He's claiming her as a Beck family heir. Over my dead body, Jin-woo. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Jin-woo slid a gun across the kitchen counter to his wife. If anyone besides me comes through that door tonight, shoot them. Even if they wear our family crest. Mir stared at the weapon, then at their baby sleeping peacefully in her high chair, unaware that her first birthday might be her last day with both parents. Jin-woo gently lifted her chin until their eyes met. I built an empire on blood and fear, but you and Hyun are the only things I've ever truly loved. And my father just declared war on us both. What are we going to do? Whatever it takes to keep our family together. Even if it means destroying everything else. 1 perfect year. That's all they had been given. 1 beautiful year of watching Hyun grow from a tiny, premature baby into a bright-eyed, curious little girl who had her father's intensity and her mother's smile. 1 year of believing they had escaped the shadows of Jin-woo's world. 1 year of pretending that being the son of Seoul's most dangerous crime family wouldn't eventually demand payment. The trouble began 3 days ago. Mir was preparing for Hyun's traditional Dole celebration, her first birthday, the most important milestone in Korean culture. The apartment was decorated with silk banners in bright colors. A traditional daljabi table was set up, objects carefully arranged for Hyun to choose from, predicting her future. Jin-woo had insisted on everything being perfect, blending Korean traditions with small American touches that honored Mir's heritage. Then the call came. Jin-woo's face changed as he listened, his expression hardening into something Mir had rarely seen since Hyun's birth. That cold mask of the man who controlled Seoul's underworld. I'll handle it, was all he said before hanging up. He kissed Mir quickly, stroked Hyun's cheek, and was gone without explanation. He returned after midnight. Mir pretended to be asleep as he slipped into the bathroom. She heard water running for a long time. When he finally came to bed, he smelled strongly of soap, as though he'd scrubbed his skin raw. The next morning, she found his suit in the trash. Dark stains that looked like blood soaked the sleeve. Business, was all he said when she asked. Nothing for you to worry about. But that night, he taught her how to use the gun he kept in a fingerprint-locked safe. Showed her the panic room hidden behind the bookcase in his office. Made her memorize a phone number she was only to call if separated from him. Just precautions, he assured her. For my peace of mind. Now, as she held the weight of the gun in her hand, those precautions felt terrifyingly inadequate. Your father wouldn't hurt his own granddaughter. The words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Jin-woo checked the clip in his own weapon. My father sees Hyun as a Beck, the next generation. He believes I've gone soft, compromised the family by marrying an American, by stepping back from certain business interests. He wants to raise her with proper values. She's 1 year old. Age doesn't matter to him. Legacy does. Jin-woo moved to the window, scanning the streets below. When I took over most of the family businesses after our wedding, I've been shifting things. Legitimate investments, clean money, partnerships that don't require blood to seal them. He turned back to face her. My father sees it as weakness, as betraying everything he built. After your pregnancy, I let him believe I was simply distracted by becoming a father. But he's figured out that I'm dismantling his empire piece by piece. Mir cradled Hyun close. The baby stirred slightly, her tiny hand grabbing at Mir's necklace. The jade pendant Jin-woo had given her on their wedding day. You never told me. I wanted to protect you. To give you and Hyun a chance at normal before. He stopped. Before what? Before my father realized what I was doing. Before he decided to take matters into his own hands. Mir felt her blood run cold. What exactly did he say to you? That I had until Hyun's first birthday to remember my duties to the Beck name. That if I couldn't raise my child properly, he would. Mir tightened her grip on Hyun. When were you planning to tell me? After her birthday. I thought we had time. I thought I could reason with him. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. They both froze. Are you expecting anyone? Jin-woo asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. Just the bakery delivery. For Hyun's cake. I'll check. Take Hyun to the panic room. Lock the door. Don't come out unless you hear my voice. Mir nodded, gathering Hyun and hurrying toward Jin Woo's office. She heard him approach the door, heard the intercom crackle to life. Then nothing. No voices, no sounds of struggle, just silence so complete it made her heart race. If you're feeling your pulse quicken right now, hit that subscribe button, because what happens in the next few minutes will change everything for this family. Can they escape Jin Woo's father's reach? Drop a comment below telling me what you would do if your child was threatened by family. The panic room was small but well equipped. Bulletproof walls, a separate ventilation system, enough supplies to last for days. A bank of monitors showed different areas of the penthouse. Mir's eyes immediately went to the front door camera. Jin Woo stood there, talking to a delivery man in a uniform. Everything looked normal, but something about Jin Woo's posture felt wrong. Too stiff, too controlled, even for him. The delivery man handed over a large box, presumably Hyun's birthday cake. Jin Woo signed for it, then closed the door. He set the box down carefully on the entry table and pulled out his phone. Mir couldn't hear what he was saying, but his expression told her everything. Something was very wrong. She watched as he moved swiftly through the apartment, checking windows, doors, pulling blinds closed. He was halfway to the office, to the panic room, when the front door burst open. 3 men in suits entered, guns drawn. Not forcing their way in, they had a key. The security system hadn't triggered. Jin Woo spun, already reaching for his weapon, but stopped when a 4th figure entered. Elder Mr. Beck, his father. The old man walked with a cane, but there was nothing frail about him. His presence filled the room with a cold authority that made even his armed guards seem inconsequential. Where is my granddaughter? The monitors had no audio, but Mir could read his lips easily enough. Jin Woo's response was lost as he turned away from the camera, but his father's reaction was clear. Anger, then something like disappointment. Mir clutched Hyun closer as the baby began to squirm, uncomfortable in the tight hold. On the monitor, Jin Woo and his father were clearly arguing. The old man gestured sharply with his cane. Jin Woo stood his ground, hands empty, somehow more intimidating without a weapon than his father's guards were with him. Then Elder Beck said something that made Jin Woo go completely still. The kind of stillness Mir had learned to fear. Preceded violence, always. Jin Woo reached slowly into his jacket. For a moment, Mir thought he was going for his gun, that she was about to watch her husband shoot his own father. Instead, he withdrew his phone, dialed a number while maintaining eye contact with the old man. Mir's phone vibrated in her pocket. She fumbled to answer it without jostling Hyun. They're here. Jin Woo's voice was calm, measured. My father and his men. They came for Hyun. I can see the monitors. What do we do? There's a bag in the cabinet under the medical supplies. Passports, cash, everything you need. There's an exit at the back of the panic room. It leads to a service elevator. Take it to the parking garage. There's a car waiting, keys in the glove compartment. I'm not leaving you. You have to. He'll never stop, Mir. Not unless I end this tonight. End this how? There was a pause. There are things about my family, about our business that I've protected you from. Things I've done. I know who you are, Jin Woo. No. You know who I am with you. That's not the same thing. His voice softened. I love you. I love Hyun. That's real. But so is this life I was born into. So are the consequences of trying to leave it. On the monitor, Mir could see his father watching him closely. The guards shifting nervously, hands on their weapons. I'm going to create a distraction, Jin Woo continued. When I do, you run. Don't look back. Don't come back. Not until I contact you. What if you can't contact me? Another pause. Then keep running. The line went dead. On the monitor, Jin Woo slid his phone back into his pocket. He said something to his father. The old man's face contorted with rage. He raised his cane, bringing it down toward Jin Woo's head. Jin Woo moved with the lightning speed that had made him feared throughout Seoul. He caught the cane mid-swing, yanked it forward, pulling his father off balance. In the same fluid motion, he twisted, using the cane to knock the nearest guard off his feet. Chaos erupted. The remaining guards rushed forward. Jin Woo was a blur of controlled violence. A lamp shattered. A guard went down clutching his throat. Elder Beck backed toward the door, shouting orders. Mir knew this was the distraction he'd promised. With trembling hands, she found the bag Jin Woo had mentioned. Inside were passports, American ones, with her real name and Hyun's, but not Jin Woo's Korean passport. Instead, there was one for Eugene Kim, an American identity she'd never seen before. There was cash in multiple currencies, credit cards in the same American name, a phone she didn't recognize, and a small velvet pouch that, when opened, revealed her jade wedding necklace's twin, the one Jin Woo always wore beneath his shirts. With Hyun secured against her chest in a carrier, the bag over her shoulder, and Jin Woo's gun in her pocket, Mir found the hidden exit. It opened into a narrow corridor that led, as promised, to a service elevator. As the doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of the monitor showing their living room. Jin Woo was still fighting, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. His father was nowhere to be seen. The elevator descended silently to the parking garage. Mir moved quickly between parked cars, searching for whatever vehicle Jin Woo had prepared. She found it at the far end, not one of his usual luxury cars, but a nondescript sedan with tinted windows. The keys were exactly where he said they would be. With shaking hands, she secured Hyun's carrier in the back seat. The baby, miraculously, had fallen asleep despite everything. As Mir slid behind the wheel, a shadow moved in her peripheral vision. Going somewhere, daughter-in-law? Elder Beck emerged from between two parked cars, leaning heavily on his cane. Alone, without his guards. Blood stained the sleeve of his immaculate suit. Whether his or someone else's, Mir couldn't tell. My son thinks he can protect you from me. The old man's voice was surprisingly gentle, almost sad. He forgets where he learned his skills. Who taught him everything he knows. Mir's hand moved to her pocket, to Jin Woo's gun. The old man noticed and smiled. You won't shoot me. Not just because I'm an old man or your daughter's grandfather. You won't shoot me because you know deep down that I'm right. My son has forgotten who he is. He thinks he can live in two worlds, yours and mine. But the Beck legacy isn't something you can pick and choose from. It's everything or nothing. You're wrong about him. Mir found her voice was steady despite her fear. Jin Woo hasn't forgotten who he is. He's becoming who he was meant to be. A father. A husband. A man who builds things instead of destroying them. The old man's expression hardened. Naive American girl. You think love changes a man like my son? The blood in his veins is mine. The instincts that keep him alive are mine. The power he wields is mine. You've been a pleasant distraction. But it's time he remembered his true purpose. Which is what? Violence? Fear? Is that the legacy you want for your granddaughter? I want her to be strong. To survive in a world that shows no mercy to the weak. She will be strong. She'll have both of us to make sure of that. But she'll also be kind, compassionate, everything you've forgotten how to be. The old man's laugh was cold. My son chose well. You have spirit. But spirit won't protect my granddaughter from what's coming. And what's that? War. He said it simply as though discussing the weather. My son has been dismantling business relationships that took decades to build. Creating enemies where there were alliances. All because he thinks he can wash the blood from his hands and play at being normal for you. A sound from behind him made Elder Beck turn slightly. It was enough of a distraction. Mir lunged forward, bringing the butt of the gun down on the side of his head, not hard enough to seriously injure, but enough to stun him. He crumpled to his knees, more from surprise than pain. That's not playing, Mr. Beck. That's growth. She backed toward the car. And for the record, I never thought Jin Woo was normal. I just loved him anyway. She slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. Through the window, she could see the old man struggling to his feet, one hand pressed to his bleeding temple. Their eyes met one last time as she pulled away. There was something in his gaze she hadn't expected. Not anger or hatred. Respect. The streets of Seoul blurred past as Mir drove on autopilot, following the GPS coordinates pre-programmed into the car's navigation system. Her mind raced with questions. Where was Jin Woo now? Was he hurt? What would happen to him once his father realized she'd escaped with Hyun? The GPS led her out of the city, away from the glittering skyscrapers and crowded streets of Gangnam, through quieter neighborhoods, and finally onto a highway heading south. After an hour of driving, it directed her to exit onto a narrow road that wound through densely wooded hills. Eventually, the trees parted to reveal a traditional Korean hanok house. Its curved tile roof and wooden beams a stark contrast to the modern penthouse they'd left behind. The house sat in a clearing, surrounded by gardens, a small stream running alongside it, peaceful, isolated. As Mir pulled up to the house, the front door opened. A woman emerged, elderly, dressed simply but elegantly. She bowed slightly as Mir stepped out of the car. "Mrs. Beck, we've been expecting you. Please bring the little one inside. You must be exhausted. Who are you? How did you know I was coming?" The woman smiled gently. "I am Park Sukja. I was your husband's nanny when he was a child, before his father changed. This house has been in my family for generations. Jin Woo restored it for me 3 years ago, after you were married. He said someday it might be needed as a sanctuary." 3 years ago? Mir struggled to process this. He's been planning this since before Hyun was born? Jin Woo has always seen further ahead than others. Sukja gestured toward the house. "Please come inside. The little one needs to rest properly, and you look ready to collapse. If you're feeling the weight of these revelations, hit that like button right now. Could you forgive your spouse for keeping such massive secrets? Comment below what you would do in Mir's position. And make sure you're subscribed because what Jin Woo does next will change everything for this family." The inside of the hanok was a perfect blend of tradition and modern comfort. Wooden floors polished to a soft glow. Paper screens filtering the late afternoon sunlight. A state-of-the-art security system blinking quietly in the corner. Sukja showed Mir to a room prepared for Hyun, complete with a traditional Korean baby bed but with modern monitors and comforts. After settling the still sleeping child, Mir wandered back to the main room, her mind racing with questions. "How long has Jin Woo owned this place?" she asked, running her fingers along the smooth wooden beams. "He purchased it 3 years ago, after you were married." Sukja placed a steaming cup of tea on the low table. "He said a man with something to protect needs contingency plans. 3 years. Mir sank onto a cushion, the weight of realization settling on her shoulders. He's been expecting this all along. Not expecting, preparing. Sukja's correction was gentle but firm. There's a difference. Tell me about his father, about the Beck family. Everything Jin Woo hasn't told me. Sukja studied her face for a long moment before nodding. The Beck family rose from nothing after the Korean War. Elder Beck, Sung-ho, built an empire through fear, loyalty, and strategic violence. In Seoul's underworld, the Beck name means absolute power, and Jin Woo was raised to inherit this. From the moment he could walk, sadness flickered across the old woman's face. I was his nanny until he was 8. I saw what that kind of expectation does to a child. The way it hollows them out, replaces innocence with calculation. Mir thought of Jin Woo with their daughter, how gentle his hands were when he held her, how his voice softened when he spoke to her. But he's different with Hyun, with me, because he chose to be. Sukja's eyes sharpened. Make no mistake, the man who fights to protect you is the same man who built his reputation on necessary violence. The difference is purpose, not ability. A phone rang, the one from Jin Woo's emergency bag. Mir answered immediately. Are you safe? Jin Woo's voice was tense but controlled. Yes, we're at the hanok. Hyun's sleeping. Mir moved to the window, watching darkness settle over the mountains. You've been planning this for 3 years. I've been planning for every possible scenario since the day I met you. No apology in his tone, just simple fact. My father was always going to be a problem. What happened after we left? My father escaped with his men. I'm tracking them now. What are you going to do when you find him? Pause. What's necessary? Jin Woo. She closed her eyes, gathering her thoughts. He's your father. He stopped being my father the moment he threatened our family. The coldness in his voice sent a chill through her. Stay at the hanok. I've arranged for security, people my father doesn't know about. I'll contact you when it's safe. And if it's never safe, then I'll come to you. Wherever you go, I'll find you. The call ended before she could respond. Mir stared at the darkening garden, frustration building inside her. Once again, Jinwoo was shutting her out, making decisions that affected their entire family without her input. He's always been stubborn, Sukja said quietly, even as a child. 3 days passed with no word from Jinwoo. 3 days of Mir pacing the wooden floors at night after Hyun had fallen asleep. 3 days of jumping at every sound from the surrounding forest. On the 4th morning, unable to bear the waiting any longer, she approached Sukja with determination. I need to go back to Seoul. Sukja looked up from where she was folding laundry. That would be unwise. I can't just hide here while Jinwoo faces his father alone. This isn't just his fight anymore. What do you propose to do? Walk into the Beck compound and demand they leave your family alone. The old woman's tone was sharp but not unkey. Indeed, these men have built their lives on power and intimidation. They don't respond to emotional appeals. Then I need to speak their language. Mir sat across from her. Teach me. Sukja's hands stilled. Teach you what? Everything. How the Beck family operates. Who their allies are. Their enemies. Their businesses. How decisions get made. Mir leaned forward. Jinwoo thinks he's protecting me by keeping me in the dark. But ignorance isn't protection. It's vulnerability. The old woman studied her face carefully before nodding once. Very well. But understand this. Once you have this knowledge, you can never go back to not knowing. If you believe Mir is right to stop hiding and start fighting, hit that like button now. Would you risk entering this dangerous world to stand beside the person you love? Comment below what you would do in her position. This story is about to take a turn that will change everything. Make sure you're subscribed. For the next 2 days, Sukja became Mir's teacher. She explained the complex web of relationships that made up Seoul's criminal hierarchy. The Kong family who controlled shipping. The An family with their political connections. The Park family who managed the flow of information. And at the center, the Becks, feared and respected in equal measure. Every year, Elder Beck hosts a gathering, Sukja explained as they shared dinner. All the family heads, their lieutenants, their heirs. A show of power disguised as tradition. When? Tomorrow night. Sukja's expression grew troubled. The perfect opportunity for Jinwoo to make his move against his father. Mir felt her blood run cold. You think that's his plan? To confront his father publicly. It would be the Beck way. Public reckoning. A clear message to anyone who might consider targeting his family in the future. That night, after Hyun was asleep, Mir made a decision. She couldn't sit safely hidden while Jinwoo risked everything. One way or another, she would be there tomorrow night. The next morning, she found an envelope slipped under the front door. Inside was an invitation card embossed with the Beck family crest, an address in Seoul's most exclusive neighborhood, and a handwritten note. The choice is yours. The handwriting wasn't Jinwoo's. It was elegant, feminine, someone who knew exactly where they were hiding. This is impossible, Sukja whispered, examining the envelope. No one knows about this place except Jinwoo. Someone clearly does. Mir stared at the invitation. Someone who wants me at that gathering tonight. It could be a trap. Or it could be an opportunity. Sukja's expression hardened. If you go, you'll be walking into the very heart of danger. These people live by different rules, different codes. Then I need to look like I belong. Mir squared her shoulders. I need clothes, hair, makeup, everything that says Beck family without saying a word. Hours later, Mir barely recognized herself in the mirror. Her casual clothes had been replaced by an elegant hanbok in black and gold traditional, but with modern touches that spoke of wealth and confidence. Her hair had been styled, her makeup applied to emphasize her features while maintaining an air of dignified restraint. You look like you belong, Sukja said, adjusting the jade necklace Jinwoo had given her, now paired with matching earrings Sukja had produced from a hidden compartment in her wardrobe. That's the point, isn't it? Mir turned to face her. To make them believe I'm not an outsider. Understanding their world and surviving it are different things. Sukja's expression was grave. Are you certain about this? No, Mir admitted. But I'm certain about Jin Woo. About us. About wanting a future for Hyun that isn't built on fear. Hyun would stay with Sukja, safely hidden away from whatever happened tonight. As Mir prepared to leave, she held her daughter close, breathing in her sweet baby scent, memorizing the weight of her in her arms, just in case. I'll be back, she whispered against Hyun's soft hair. I promise. The Baek family compound sat on the outskirts of Seoul, a sprawling estate that blended traditional Korean architecture with modern luxury. As the taxi approached the gates, Mir felt her heart hammering against her ribs. This was madness. Walking into the lion's den with nothing but determination and an anonymous invitation. Guards checked her name against a list, expressions carefully neutral as they found it there. Whoever had sent the invitation had arranged for her to be expected. The thought was both reassuring and terrifying. Inside, the compound was alive with activity. Staff moved efficiently through rooms decorated with priceless antiques and modern art. Security personnel positioned discreetly at key points, their attention sharp despite their relaxed postures. Mir moved through the space with practiced confidence, a trick Sukja had taught her. Walk like you have every right to be there, the old woman had said. Hesitation is weakness, and weakness they will devour. The main event was being held in a large traditional hall at the center of the compound. Mir could hear voices, music, the gentle clinking of crystal glasses. She paused at the entrance, gathering her courage. You came. The voice behind her was female, cultured, familiar somehow though Mir was certain they'd never met. She turned to find herself facing a woman perhaps 50 years old, elegant in a traditional hanbok of deepest blue. Her face held echoes of Jin Woo, the same intensity in her eyes, the same proud line of her jaw. You sent the invitation. It wasn't a question. Yes. The woman studied her carefully. I needed to see what kind of woman my son married, what kind of mother my granddaughter has. Mir felt the world tilt beneath her feet. You're Hyung Baek, Jin Woo's mother. The woman's smile held no warmth. Yes, very much alive, despite what you may have been told. Jin Woo believes you died when he was a child. A necessary deception. My husband's idea, of course. Something flashed in her eyes, old pain, carefully contained. It was better for everyone if I disappeared. Better for who? Mir kept her voice low, mindful of the staff moving nearby. Not for your son. You think I abandoned him by choice? Hyung's perfect composure cracked slightly. I made a deal. My absence for his future freedom. My husband promised that when Jin Woo was old enough, he could choose his own path. He broke that promise. Yes, after my older son died, he decided Jin Woo was his only heir. Hyung's expression revealed nothing, but her hands tightened on her embroidered purse. By then, I was officially dead. Any protection I might have offered was gone. Why reveal yourself now, after all these years? Because my son is about to make a terrible mistake. Hyung glanced toward the hall where the gathering was taking place. He's planning to confront his father tonight. Publicly. Definitively. Mir felt cold despite the warm evening. You mean he's going to kill him? He believes it's the only way to protect you and the child. Hyung's eyes held hers steadily. But killing his father won't free him from this life. It will chain him to it forever. The other families would demand blood for blood. There would be no escape, ever, for any of you. What are you suggesting? A different solution. One that preserves the family legacy while allowing Jin Woo the freedom he desires. Hyung straightened her shoulders. But it requires your help. Why would I trust you? Because whatever you may think of me, I love my son. I want him to have what I never could, a life of his own choosing. She held out her hand. Will you help me save him from himself? For a moment Mir hesitated. This woman had let Jin Woo believe she was dead for 20 years. Had let him be raised by a man who valued power over love. Could she be trusted now? But what choice did she have? If Hyung was right about Jin Woo's plans, every second counted. What do you need me to do? Hyung's plan was audacious in its simplicity. She would enter the gathering first, creating a distraction with her unexpected return from the dead. In the confusion, Mir would find Jin Woo and convince him there was another way, before he could execute whatever plan he had for his father. The key is timing, Hee-young explained as they moved through a private corridor toward the main hall. My husband is always most vulnerable during his annual address. It's when he steps away from his security, shows himself to be the undisputed head of the family. And you think that's when Jin Woo will make his move? I know my son. He learned strategy from his father. Hee-young's smile was cold. Poetic justice would appeal to him. They paused outside a pair of ornate wooden doors. Beyond them, Mir could hear the murmur of voices, the subtle sounds of power and wealth congregating. Remember, Hee-young said, adjusting Mir's necklace one last time. These people respect strength above all else. Show any weakness, and they'll destroy you. Without waiting for a response, she pushed open the doors and stepped through. The reaction was immediate, conversation halting mid-sentence, glasses freezing halfway to lips, every eye turning to the woman who had returned from the dead. Hello, husband. Hee-young's voice carried clearly through the sudden silence. You're looking old. In the chaos that followed, Mir slipped along the edges of the room, searching for Jin Woo. The space was filled with Seoul's criminal elite, men and women in expensive clothes, their power evident in their posture, in the way others deferred to them. At the front of the hall, Elder Beck stood frozen, his face a mask of shock as he stared at his supposedly dead wife. Mir finally spotted Jin Woo near a side entrance, positioned perfectly to approach his father during the confusion. His expression a study in barely controlled fury as he watched his mother's dramatic return. She reached him just as he was moving forward, her hand closing around his wrist. Jin Woo, wait. He turned, shock breaking through his mask of control. Mir? What are you? Doing exactly what you're doing. Fighting for our family. She tightened her grip. But not like this. Not with more violence. His eyes darted between her and the confrontation unfolding at the front of the room. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand perfectly. Your mother explained everything. My mother is dead. Look again. She nodded toward where Hee-young stood facing Elder Beck, 2 decades of secrets unraveling between them. She faked her death? Or your father did, to protect you? To give you a chance at freedom someday? Jin Woo's expression hardened. And yet here I am, my father's perfect heir. But you don't have to be. Not anymore. Mir stepped closer, her voice urgent. Your mother has a plan. A way to free us without more bloodshed. There is no freedom while my father lives. There's no freedom if you become him either. She placed her hand against his cheek, forcing him to look at her. If you kill him tonight, in front of all these people, you're accepting his legacy. Forever. Is that what you want for Hyun? To inherit that kind of power? That kind of fear? Something flickered in his eyes, doubt, perhaps, or recognition of a truth he'd been avoiding. Trust me, she whispered. One last time. Trust me. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, give this video a thumbs up. Can Mir convince Jin Woo to choose a different path? Comment below what you think will happen next. And make sure you're subscribed because the conclusion to this family saga will change everything.